One of the core features of the Pokemon franchise is its multiplayer, but this was a lot harder to do before Nintendo Online Play was available. You would only have your local friends who happened to be into Pokemon to play with you, and one of you had to own a link cable. Now in Gen 1 and 2, this wasn't so bad. Thanks to Pokemania, everyone was playing these games, and I mean literally everyone. On top of that, the only multiplayer features were trades and versus battles, so if you didn't have anyone to do those with, you're not at a huge loss. But in Gen 3, this is a different story. Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald added tons of co-op and versus features for you to engage with your friends via. So what are you to do if you want to use them? And why were games that could only ever have local connections so focused on multiplayer? Well, for the latter, head over to my friend Tamahiro's channel. She's got a great video over there for you about why Gen 3 had such a heavy focus on connectivity and how Japan's infrastructure was a big reason they were able to do this. As for me, I'm going to focus on how to help you play Gen 3 online with your friends right now. There's two main ways to play cooperatively, as Tama did a few years ago for the multi-battle challenge in the Battle Tower, and competitively, as Jimothy Cool and I did on his gaming channel a few months ago. They're going to require two different setups because the co-op setup allows you to see your trade and battle partner screen at all times, which you don't want in a versus battle. First up is the co-op play that Tama and I did. This will require one player to download some apps on their computer, and one of the two of you will need to have a controller for your PC. It doesn't matter who. Both players will first need to back up their save file. There's a myriad of techniques you can use to do so, and I cover all the ones I know of for Gen 3 in this video right here. It's mostly about the e-reader stuff, but I'll link the section where it's just about backing up your save file. After you back up your save files, you should also back up the ROMs of the games as well. And then once that's done, you need to decide who will be the host and who will be the guest. I suggest whoever has a more stable internet connection and the better PC be the host, though it's not the most hardware intensive process, so I wouldn't worry too much about this. Then the guest should send their save file to the host. Once you've done that, the host will need these apps. MGBA. It's the best GBA emulator available right now, and it has very easy to use link features. You'll also need Parsec. This is an app that allows you to stream your PC to another user and lets them use a keyboard or game controller through it. You'll also need a Parsec account. The guest does not need to download anything, as they can connect to Parsec via a web browser on web.parsec.app, but they should also make a Parsec account. Now the host is going to have to do some setup in both of these programs. For MGBA, you need to take the ROM files and the save files and make them the same name. So for example, my ROM I named blissyemerald.gba, and then my save was named blissyemerald.sav. I did the exact same thing for Tama with tamaemerald.gba and tamaemerald.sav. You can name them whatever you'd like, just make sure they are different from each other, and that the saves have the same name as the ROM files. They should also both be in the same folder as MGBA. Then open up MGBA and click the Tools dropdown. Click Game Overrides, and we want to uncheck Auto Detect and make sure that real-time clock is not checked. Checking this will make Emerald think it has a dead internal battery. This should prevent the emulator from messing with the real-time clock of your game on the cartridge if you have a live battery, so you don't have to do any strange fixes when you reinsert your save. Tom and I had some issues with this because I didn't do it and she did have an RTC, so it took a little while to fix, and I think this is a good way to make sure we don't cause any problems while backing your save up. Even if you do not care about this and your game already had a dead battery, like me, check this anyway. MGBA keeps its real-time clock data at the end of your save file if you use a real-time clock. And it's really annoying when you try and reinsert your game back into the cartridge or something. It'll be like, the save file's too big, and then you have to go into a hex editor and edit it. So just turn this off. It makes everything much easier. The last thing you should do is set up your controller in MGBA. You're going to need to decide how you're both going to control MGBA. Ideally, at least one person is using a controller. This is because MGBA doesn't support using keyboard inputs while the window is not clicked on, but it does do this with a controller. When I played with Tama, I used a controller and she used a keyboard. So whichever controller type you're going to use as a host, you can set up now. For a keyboard, that should work right out of the box with the default settings, but if you want to change them, click the settings dropdown and click Find Keyboard on the sidebar. Then Set All will highlight a blue button. Whichever button you press on your keyboard will be that button. Just finish the sequence until you've got all the controls that you like. Controller works the exact same way, except it's in the controller's sidebar. And if you've got more than one controller plugged in, you'll have multiple options from the drop-down. Pick the one you'd like and set the buttons accordingly. Now we'll cover how to set the guests' controllers up when they connect. MGBA should be good to go for now, so let's cover what you need to do in Parsec. For the host, open your desktop app and click Settings. For the guest, you can either go to web.parsec.app or open the Parsec app if you downloaded it, and then click the Settings cog. Then for the host, in the Approved Apps tab, select MGBA. This will make sure the connecting player cannot click on any app other than MGBA. It's just a security measure, so if you're not worried about that or it causes some confusion, you can leave it unchecked. Then if the guest is going to be using a controller, the host should also click the Host tab and scroll all the way to the bottom. In the setting Virtual Gamepad type, select which of the controller type the guest is going to be connecting with. For anyone using a gamepad, in the Gamepad tab, scroll down and select your gamepad type. It's what style of controller you're using. It only supports Xbox or PlayStation layouts though. If you're using something else, just do your best to line up the buttons. Usually they're set automatically though. I actually used a GameCube controller when I played with Tama. This is all of the mandatory settings done. Everything else is optional, and it's all on the host's end. This is going to be things like resolution, bandwidth, and frames per second. You can leave all of them on the default settings, but if you're having connection troubles, try lowering any of these values to create a smoother experience. And once that's all done, you should be ready to go. The host should go to the Computers section and click Share on their desktop. After that, send the link to the guest. When the guest connects, by default, they will only have controller access. So if they need to use a keyboard, click the Parsec button on the bottom left of the app and click the keyboard symbol to give them access. Otherwise, open MGBA and select the host's Emerald via Load ROM. Then click File and click Load Alternate Save Game and click the save that matches with that game. Then, to start a multiplayer game, click File and click New Multiplayer Window, and a new window of MGBA will pop up. From there, select the guest's ROM and load the save that same way via Load Alternate Save Game. Now, we just need to set up the guest's controller. If they are using a keyboard, click on the second MGBA window and click Settings. Then scroll down to Keyboard and click Set All. Then allow the guest to assign their keys as they'd like. They can do this by hitting the buttons on their own keyboard. Whichever box is highlighted blue is currently the button that you're assigning. If they are using a controller, make sure they click any button on the controller first. You'll both hear a connection sound as if a new device was plugged in. Then, go into the Controllers tab and select their controller from the drop-down list as the host. It will be called whatever you selected in the Virtual Gamepad type drop-down. Then, click Set All and let them assign their buttons accordingly. It works the same as on their keyboard. They should have full control of that window now, regardless of whether it's clicked on or not. At this point, everything should be done for cooperative play. Both players should have full control of their individual window, and to connect, all you have to do is go to whatever location you want to play together in. Keep in mind that whichever window is using the keyboard as its controller has to be the window that you've clicked on, because the keyboard can't control unless it's highlighted. This should work pretty seamlessly, since MGBA's local multiplayer functionality is very stable. However, the reason this is only good for trading, record mixing, or cooperative play in the Battle Tower should be pretty obvious. Both players are viewing both MGBA windows at all times, so if you wanted to compete, well, you'd both be seeing everything that your opponent was doing. That's why, to do competitive multiplayer battles in Gen 3, we're going to be going a whole different route. My friend PokeFinder and I have worked on a modded version of Pokemon XD / the Dolphin emulator to do competitive singles battles. It just uses the native Dolphin netplay feature, but we've got some gecko codes built in to make it more analogous to Smogon's OU 6 vs 6 singles format. However, this will also work for VGC style battles too if you're into those. Getting started is really simple. Both players will need to follow the same steps every single time. You're going to need to rip your copy of Pokemon XD using whatever methods you have available, and do the same for your copy of Pokemon Emerald and its saves, as we've previously covered for the co-op section. Personally, I just use an app on my Wii's homebrew channel for the XD ISO ripping. Once you've got that done, download our fork of Dolphin. It's set up to be portable, so it will not interfere with any existing installs of Dolphin that you have. I make a new folder called XD netplay, and I place all the files from the zip into there. Then I place my Emerald ROM and save in the Emerald folder, and I rename the ROM to emerald.gba. Then I'm going to rename my own Emerald save to emerald-2.sav. You have to do this or it will not work correctly. Then place your XD ISO in the GXXE01 folder. We're actually almost ready to go. That's how simple this is. Next, we need to decide who is hosting and who is connecting. Whoever is connecting has to send their save file for Emerald to the host, and the host needs to rename that save emerald-3.sav. And then they need to place it into the Emerald folder. Both players should open Dolphin, and you'll see a lone copy of XD in there. The host should right-click it and select Host with netplay, which is all the way at the bottom. A new window will pop up, and it has a code for the netplay in it. All you have to do is click the copy button and send the code to the guest. The guest should click the Tools dropdown and click Start Netplay. They then paste the code the host sent and hit Connect. Then, when player 2 is in, the host must click Assign Controller Ports and set themselves to GameCube controller in port 1, and also to GBA integrated in port 2. The guest should be set to GBA integrated port 3. Then you can click Start and you'll be loaded into Pokemon XD and a small MGBA window will pop up. Once the game window opens up, you're going to want to make sure that your Emerald copy is saved with the party that you want in the first floor of a Pokemon Center. You can see I've got my team right here. And just so you know, the standard rule set that we have set up here has the usual Smogon bans, where things like legendaries such as Rayquaza are banned, and it just follows the general rule list for that. Once that's done, you can wait on your GBA window. You can also adjust the controls by clicking the Controls tab here and hitting Configure to whatever buttons you would like. In Pokemon XD, you're going to want to go to the main menu, and you're going to click Versus Mode. And then you're going to click Group Battle, and you're going to do GBA versus GBA. We're doing a single battle, and the arena doesn't matter. I usually just do random. And as for the rules, we have 6v6 saved here, and you can click Adopt a Rule and then Enter. And the last thing you have to understand is how to actually reset the game. What you do is you right-click the GBA window and then click Reset. And then it's going to load up and actually connect. It does player 2 first, and then it'll do player 3 second. And it works. I should note that you'll only be able to see your GBA window, which is really handy. And in addition to that, if you actually want to remove some of the features that Jeff and I put into this, you only have to remove the cheat file. And so what do I mean by that? Well, as you're about to see here, after I start the battle, so you have to hit A on both GBAs, and then you have to hit Start on player 1's GBA. We're gonna get to this screen. Typically, there's Team Preview here. As you can see, the icons have all been removed. And on the following screen, there's also Team Preview. This is for Smogon play, because there's no Team Preview in that. But for net play, for Pokemon VGC style battles, they actually have Team Preview. And so all you have to do is right-click this, the XD ISO, and click Properties. And then in there, you can go to the AR codes and uncheck XD OU fixes. That's all you have to do if you want to play VGC style. But once that happens, once you've picked everything else out, the battle's going to work. In addition, because most people, like Jeff and I, are not freaks who love grinding and getting our own Pokemon, we actually included a copy of pkhex for this specific version. So if you look here, it says pkhex, and this is a specific configuration of pkhex with the auto legality mod that will let you copy and paste 6 Pokemon at the same time. There are some issues with it where if your Pokemon is a legendary, you're going to have to fix its IVs. In addition to all of this, we have a very comprehensive written guide that Jeff made for this that is a lot more in-depth than I did here, but I think this is a fairly simple to do and intuitive setup. So if you have any questions about this process, please leave them down below, or join my Discord, or join Jeff's Discord, and we will do our best to help you out and try and get some net play battles going. I hope this all was helpful for you. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next video.